Alright, so this can sort out empty buckets. And we get glass here. This is a module that I use to sort things in survival mode. I usually use it for sorting stuff with 64s, but you can make it with the same module work with empty buckets. This design is an old design. I didn't come up with it. It's from somebody from a long time ago. I would credit them if I knew who it was. But I didn't come up with this design. This is somebody else's, but it works well enough to where I couldn't think of a better way to make one. So this is for later. But the way that it works is the comparator detects one redstone block worth of whatever is in here, and because every slot is full in the hopper of the same item, only that item can be added to the first section. So if I put a bunch of empty buckets in here, this thing's gonna blink. Because what's happening is every time the buckets go through this tube, this hopper pipe, they match this thing. And since they match, and since you can't put anything else in there that doesn't match, like if I put some redstone in there, like redstone is just going to go to the end, because the only way out of the hopper pipe is into this hopper. The reason that I have glass here is it allows you to open this box, which is the sorting box. Which I think I took all the buckets out, right? Yeah. So if I put the buckets in there, it keeps adding one bucket and removing one bucket, and adding one bucket and removing one bucket. And that's what this does here. When there's an item greater than 5 empty buckets, it makes this second piece of redstone light up, which powers this block, which powers the repeater, which powers this block, which shuts off the torch. And since the hopper only adds the one item and it causes this to trigger, it shuts this torch off and lets this item go into the box. But because the next hopper, the hopper up here is waiting to add another bucket to this, and it can't skip ahead, you end up with the blinking light down there. And you can use this with items that stack in 64 too. It's hard to see, but it is blinking. And anything that doesn't match ends up in this box. The problem with trying to sort full water buckets is if you fill this whole thing up with a full water bucket, there's no space for that circuit to work. There's no other space to add water buckets. And there's no space to add, because these don't stack. Each one takes up each spot. And the reason this works is because of that, because it matches the one item from this pipe in the hopper. The reason that I have the glass here is so you can easily add more modules. You can have a module right on the next line, like one every block. So it's like, it's really space efficient, but it's not necessarily material efficient, because in my survival video, as many boxes as you add with hoppers to this, but you don't want to put the hopper here, you want to put the hopper here. You can add as many boxes here, going this way, going down. But again, like, I didn't come up with this design, it's from somebody from a long time ago. I'm not trying to take credit for their design, but just so the video, like, just so I'm the one explaining why I use this module. But it's so good that I think that other people should use this module too. But again, I can't see a better way to do it. Like, I can't see a better way that's this space efficient and sorts stuff. I mean, it's like, I can't think of a better way. Like, so if you want to add more modules, you can add spaces between them if you're worried that the redstone is going to connect. And sometimes if you mess up how much you have in here, that will happen, and it'll cause the other modules that are right next to this module, like if I put one right here, it'll cause the redstone signal to bleed over to the next module's repeater block here, and it will turn off the other torches. So you do have to design it the way that it works based on the mechanics in the game. Like, so, you know, test it and make sure that it does what you think that it does, rather than just wanting to believe it's going to do what you think it's going to do, as far as the amount of items that you put in this hopper. This hopper is facing into nothing. So anything that gets dropped in here matches and then just sits there until this hopper is allowed to let items pass through. So that's why I use the glass. Because if you don't use glass, it makes it hard to place that hopper facing into nothing. Like, if you put a non-glass block, you can't open this chest. And sometimes you might have to open the chest. So I like to use the glass block because that accounts for that. And if you leave the glass block here, you can just go this whole rest of the way and add more modules. Like, so anything that matches any of the hoppers that you put in this box is going to get sorted into its box, or its module. Like, what is this, buckets? But because full water buckets and full lava buckets have a different redstone value, you can account for that. That's not the problem. Having 5 buckets in here and matching every slot means that only an empty bucket can go in this hopper, and it just happens to sit at 1 redstone. So as soon as you put, as as soon as you put more than 5 buckets in here, it goes from 1 to 2. And since this circuit won't let anything beyond one item pass through at a time, starting from here going through this hopper pipe, that's why it ticks the way that it does. Like, you can actually use that as a sequential programmable sequencer. Like, every module matches up and it makes this thing light up. And if you have a row of dispensers that consistently drop items in this box in a certain sequence, you can copy that as many times as you want to use this as a programmable sequencer. So if you want this thing to happen, and only once, like to trigger things, like if you hook that up to a pulse system with, memory cells, it triggers a memory cell to either be on or off based on the pulse. With a master reset, but I'm getting way out of control there. Like, the sorter guy, where I got the module from, I don't think he did that with it. But yeah. So if you wanted to repeat this module, if you want to be safe, you can put one here. You could put one block away from this, but you don't have to. If you encounter a problem from placing a block, like from placing a module too close to another module, the easiest thing to do is to just move it one block away if you have to. But yeah, somebody wanted a thing that sorted empty buckets, water buckets, and green dye. And trying to type all this out to answer their question. Plus, it happens to be a sorting thing that I happen to be doing like a playthrough of. Like, it's just easier to make the video than try to type it out, or to take like pictures and make like a how-to thing, or like, oh, see, that's wrong. Oops. This is just easier. The way that I usually expand this is I just follow this pattern and go out this way. Then you add a row of repeaters, and then you add this block, and then you add these 2 blocks. And this whole thing can get like, oops, can get redstone on it, like, but yeah. And then you go through and add this block, which, if I'm building it, I may as well build it what I'm doing. Like, it's easier to just build it this way than try to build the one module with the space in it. And then I can delete the one module to show that that works too. Like, and rather than talk about it, the whole point of the video is to show people. So like, you just repeat that design like that, and they can be as close or as far apart as you want. You can, like, this doesn't have to be this way, it's just more space efficient. So like, if you wanted to put redstone in here, stuff that stacks in 64 is not the same. So I usually right click and drag across there to put one in every one of them. And then anything over 18 causes this not to light up. And it'll stop on 18 with 4 in that one slot every time. Which that's different from empty water buckets. So like, And you can swap that item out. It doesn't have to be redstone. So long as it stacks in 64, it's got the same value on the comparator. So if you get green dye, oops, and you take this out, I mean, you could put green dye in here. You don't want to overload this box. It has to be 18 and then 4. Because if you do, having the modules too close together will cause this to generate more than just the one signal that lights it up. And when this lights up, turns on the repeater, turns off the torch, and lets one item through. So now we got green dye in here. We'll throw some green dye in here. It's going to skip every other one, which at this point is the bucket. And it's only lighting up this one, and it's only lighting up, turning off that torch, allowing one item to go through at a time. This is from before. Where you put the module doesn't really matter, because it works based on matching. Since only green dye can go in this hopper, everything else gets skipped along to where it can match a hopper that matches whatever item it is. So, just as a test, like, I cleared out the whole thing here. It's weird that you can't pick block on the item frame. So, what was I putting in? Oh, green dye. So, oops, if you put buckets in here, the buckets are going to go. And it's only ever going to let one item through at a time, to where it can't overload itself in the system. But again, if you add too much stuff to the front end, it can cause a bleed through effect. So right now it's not lit up at all. I don't think that it's ran out of things to sort. No, it's because it's sorting redstone, and I don't have redstone in any one of these. So everything that doesn't match one of those hoppers, so sending the green dye through now, is going to end up at the end of the box over here. And if you made a specific system that isn't just a general sorter that, like, you know, you go dump all your inventory in the box and it sorts everything, you can use this in other redstone machines to do stuff. Like, if you know that you're only ever going to have empty water buckets, green dye, and then full water buckets, which, where's that command? And if those three things only ever go in the machine, then what that means is anything that ends up in this box, because you can't sort water buckets using the matching thing, that means that you know that the only thing that's ever going to end up in this box is a water bucket. Because this isn't, you know, if you use it as not a general sorter, and just for a machine filter, anything that goes in this box, since it's only ever going to be an empty bucket, green dye, or water bucket, you know that the outputs, you can hook a hopper up to this and use this specific output to go back to the beginning of the machine. So it's like, yeah. And again, stuff that doesn't stack in 64, I mean, the easiest way to test it is to hook up like a hopper and then see however much you have to put in the hopper to go from 1 and then 1 into 2. And it should work for this module here. But yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I'm clicking the button right now.